to spend some time with our friend Matt Spiegel, a guy who's forgotten more about baseball than most of us will ever know. And a bunch of other sports, too. He's taking time out of his busy day. Matt, good morning to you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Just dropped off my son at the daycare that substitutes as a school.
Outstanding. It's a fun time to have a kid in Chicago.
Yeah, no, it's all right, though. I said to him this morning, man, I hope your teachers... I hope the strike ends soon. He says, I don't hope that. He's having a good time.
Yeah, I was going to say, kids rarely see it through our eyes when it comes to this.
Oh, yeah, art projects at home, and then when he does go to school, it's just pretty much lollygagging around. But I know that's not why you called.
No, we can talk about Ruben all you want. That's fine. That's fine. No, it was the big news of the day. Yesterday, obviously, David Ross.
You called it, by the way. Spiegel called it.
Yeah, Spiegel did. I know the Cubs haven't officially announced everything. There's no way this isn't a done deal, right?
No, this is definitely a done deal. I think it's been their thought process for more than a year that this was the right guy, and he has been groomed for this job. And they went through the long interview process, gleaning as much as they could about the Yankees and how they do things through 8 hours with Joe Girardi, gleaning as much as they could about the Astros and how they do things through all their time with Joe Espada. And I've heard that Joe Espada absolutely blew them away. And it came close to Espada beating out David Ross, but in the end, they went for the guy they've envisioned in this role for a while and the guy they've been grooming to be in this role for a while.
Did Theo and company come into this with David Ross in mind, do you think? And I've heard whispers that, like you said, he gleaned what's going on in the Yankees organization. They gleaned what happened to the Astros organization. Was it a ploy to just talk to more people with David Ross being the guy all along?
I don't think it's a ploy. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for two things. One, to possibly meet somebody who blows you away, and that is what has happened before with them and with other people in a similar kind of process. But there's nothing wrong with interviewing the people that you're interested in and finding out what they believe, and it happens to be stuff that's helpful. There's nothing wrong with that. That's an opportunity. So I don't think it was a giant dog and pony show. 8 hours with Joe Girardi, maybe a couple of those were dog and pony shows. I don't know, like a very small Chihuahua,
a Shetland pony show.
A Chihuahua and a toy pony show of some kind. But no, I mean, Ross brings an energy and a presence to a clubhouse, and he did so as a player that they've been trying to replace for 3 years. You know, whether they bring in a guy like John Jay, or they go out and they get a guy like Daniel Descalso, or they try to urge certain people to be more vocal. And then they talk about blatantly guys needing to play with a little bit more of an edge, guys needing to be accountable. Those are the kind of things that Ross demands of teammates, and he always has, and now he'll try to do that in a manager role, which is different than obviously a veteran player role. But I would ask people to do this when they think about David Ross as a candidate. For a moment, strip away all of the Cubs context that you have and everything you know about his relationship with Theo at all. Just strip it away. Ross played for 14 years. He won 2 World Series. He played for Joe Madden, Dusty Baker, Bobby Cox, Terry Francona, and Bruce Bochy. His teammates at different times were Dave Roberts, Alex Cora, Kevin Cash, the manager of the Rays. As a catcher and then a backup catcher and then a number 3 catcher, he was involved in game planning every step of the way and valued much more than a normal backup catcher because he was incredibly intelligent and incredibly instinctive. And you know that history is littered with phenomenal managers who were catchers before. He was a leader everywhere he's ever been. And for the last 3 years, as a special assistant to the GM, he's been taught things about the organization and levels of the organization and levels of theory and analytics that he never had privy to as a player. He's been prepared for this. So he's a phenomenal managerial candidate as a person, and because of his personality and the way he talks to people and relates to people. I know he didn't have other interviews, and that freaks people out. But we don't know if he was asked to interview for other things. We don't know if people just thought it was fait accompli. He was coming to the Cubs. There's a tremendous amount of negativity, and I understand it because the dynasty visions seem to be falling short, at least right now. But David Ross has been destined to be a manager for a long, long time, and I think he's a very good candidate for a job.
Spending some time with Matt Spiegel. So I would assume then if Theo had called you and gone, we just can't. Jed and I are butting heads over this. When Matt, you make the call, you would have made this call.
I don't know. I would have loved to talk to Joe Espada. Joe Espada is a fascinating candidate. It wouldn't have been Joe Girardi for me. I'll tell you that. Joe Girardi has a reputation for being difficult for front offices to work with. He was fired after 1 year as manager of the year in Florida. Now, admittedly, those guys are kind of jamokes down there in Florida. Yeah. But Brian Cashman tired of him. Also, players who played for Girardi. Mark Teixeira said that, Joe's personality was an issue. He'd be the first one to tell you that. I don't know if he'd be the first one to tell you that. But, I think Joe fits kind of the crusty edge that they're looking for in Philly, which is an organization run by their owner, John Middleton. So, I think Ross is a better candidate than Mark Levetta. I think he's a better candidate than Will Venable. I don't know Joe Espada well enough. I would have loved to have been in on those interviews and checked him out.
The catchphrase being thrown around is, marionette, puppet strings, all of that. Yeah. David Ross is just just Theo 2.0, in the clubhouse. Is that fine? Should the manager reflect what the ownership thinks and feels?
Well, that's an interesting way to phrase it. I think there's a balance where you are not a puppet. Is Dave Roberts a puppet of Andrew Friedman? Mm-hmm. Is Alex Cora a puppet? Was he a puppet of Dave Dombrowski? Is A.J. Hinch a puppet of Jeff Luhnow in Houston? No, they are partners. Should a front office be allowed to instill their vision and have it seen through for the most part on the field? I think that answer is mostly yes, because those are the guys that we trust these days. Those are the guys who are buying the groceries and building the developmental systems. It's also the state of the game, whether we like it or not. I just gave you a ton of examples. There's a million more. Aaron Boone, enacts Brian Cashman's vision. So they are partners, and the role has changed, much to the disgruntlement of some veteran guys who used to get paid a lot and perhaps are looking for a job back in Ozigian. But here's the thing. So they're partners, but in the end, and the best of the front office guys know this, in the end, you need somebody who reads people phenomenally well, because you may say, look, my numbers show that Kyle Schwarber should hit leadoff, or my numbers show it's time to put Jason Hayward in the leadoff spot. And the manager needs to be the guy that says, I don't care what your freaking numbers say. These people will not react well to that job. And if he's wondering about it, he needs to walk over to Kyle Schwarber or Jason Hayward and say, hey, let's talk about this. And hear them. That's the manager's job. He's a personal conduit. And this is where Ross and Aaron Boone and Alex Cora and Roberts are incredible, and Hinch as well, incredibly gifted as people. That's their job, is to then talk to these guys and stand up to management from above and say, hey, I know the room, you don't do this, or this is why I'm doing that, in terms of a broad scale. And then within the game, you're not allowed to communicate. It's the manager's show. He's doing it. And he's got to know if one of his pitchers he thinks is going to, crap the bed if he's brought in a big spot. He's got to know if a batter, a possible pinch hitter is in the right headspace or not. So it is a partner, but their role as a relationship person is maybe more important than ever before. And they've got to have the balls to stand up to management and the balls to contradict players if need be.
We often have remarked on how different Cub fandom is now than it was 5 years ago. And, running managers out of town, rightfully or wrongfully, after they won a World Series. We asked people to remember what it was like in 2012, in 2011. It was different. Should a Cub fan still subscribe in Theo we trust? He can do no wrong, or some cracks in the armor now?
He's done wrong. Okay. He's done wrong, and he did wrong in Boston. He gave in and signed some people to enormous contracts that they did not merit, and which hamstrung them. And then the Red Sox were bailed out by the Dodgers a few years later with the bailout trade where Josh Beckett and Adrian Gonzalez and others went to L.A. and they were able to reboot the franchise. Theo has done wrong here, and he's done wrong on multiple levels in terms of development and some of the trends in the game, in terms of investing in Brandon Morrow and things like that. But then the question then becomes, do you believe that he is one of the best baseball guys in the business? And do you believe that he is humbled enough and self-aware enough to look at the processes with which he does things and say, we got to change this, we got to change that, we got to change this, we got to change that. Let's go. Let's be open-minded. Let's do that. I do believe that he is that self-aware, that humbled at this moment, and that open-minded. So, I understand why others might not. I've been around a lot of front office people, talked to a lot of front office people. I think he's pretty damn special. So we'll see. And if he can't do it, he can't do it. But I admire the changes. Finally, I think it's a year too late on a lot of things. They didn't do enough last offseason. They really thought that they could coach these guys up. They thought that they could get more out of certain people rather than giving up on them, even after some tough talk. They really stayed locked into some developmental principles that I think are a bit outdated, but that's all been proven now, and they know it definitively. So they're gonna try to make these moves in the offseason.
Matt, how big a deal is the Chris Bryant grievance thing?
It's interesting. I don't know. It's possible that Boris is really just pushing that to try to make a point for the entire industry and for all of his clients. We don't know just exactly how bitter Scott Boras is about this specific situation. I mean, it's just the nature of the game, right? Mm-hmm. Here's what I can tell you. When Steven Strasburg was shut down in 2012 by the Washington Nationals for the postseason, you remember this?
Oh, yeah, they hung it up in September.
Yeah, they shut him down and they went to the postseason without their ace. That was at Scott Boras' bidding. Boras said to Mike Rizzo, I don't want to risk injury. He'd shut him down and hit the innings, and Rizzo stuck to it. 4 years later, Rizzo and the Nationals were rewarded when Boras and Strasburg signed a 7-year, $175 million extension before he became a free agent, something Boras doesn't usually do, right? Mm-hmm. So he remembered that. And rewarded them. And now Strasburg has an opt-out clause. I'll be shocked if he doesn't either stay in or opt out and immediately re-sign with the Nationals because they've got a good relationship. So Boras remembers stuff, and he holds you to stuff. So if there is bitterness about Bryant's service time being played with, then I wouldn't be surprised if that lingers. And I don't know how much the grievance will play in. But listen, guys, you didn't ask, but one of the core guys is going to be traded, I do believe, in this offseason. And I would not be surprised if it's Chris Bryant.
You bring Boras up. Is the players' union at all pushing this grievance forward, or is this just a tenacious Boras trying to get the best for his client?
No, the union's all about it as well. It's all about it. The union and Boras. I mean, Boras is a de facto leader of the players' union. Mm-hmm. So. No, everybody's all the players are on board with this because they don't want to be messed with. But I mean, you got to understand the owners. It's hard to be sympathetic for owners, and I get it. But man, money is guaranteed in baseball. Guys are making $35 million a year, $40 million a year. Eventually, there's very few hammers that they really have left, and that one service time to make 7 years more. Into a contract, over 6 years into a contract in terms of control is one of the few hammers they have, and they're not going to let that go for nothing.
So if this grievance is successful, whatever that means, does that just alter Bryant's contract now? Is he done a year earlier? No. Okay.
No, I can't. I don't think there's any. I mean, you're way too close. You're 2 years out, and it would change the strategy of what you've been thinking and doing, and the extensions they've offered him, and that he's turned down. It would change all of that from the past few years. So, no, it would have to be about moving forward for other people and other clients.
But you see next year, KB probably being the one part of the core that's gone.
You know, I don't know. I just think who has the most value, and as a player, I think it's him. Who he's got 2 years left on his deal, and philosophically, the things that they have a problem with, the type of pitching that dominates them, the type of hitters they have too many of, Bryant fits into that. And he's good enough that you're not going to ask him to change. I mean, they've been asking him to be more of a contact guy, and he's done some of that. But they have redundancies in hitting types and batting types. So they need to diversify that lineup and be more like the Nationals, where they've got a bunch of different guys. Be more like it's some other good lineups. And Bryant fits into that redundancies, and again would bring you the most value.
One last question to get you out of here. Bryant, this is just what I've observed. We talk about metrics and trading him, how much of that hurt. Chemistry, also a big thing with the team. As far as like that core group of guys, Bryant always appeared to me to be on the outside looking in. Not as good buddy with everybody. Just kind of the lone wolf on the side. Have you gleaned that from the locker room?
I think that's too extreme or severe to say. I think he's quiet. I think he's incredibly nice, and not too fiery. I think a lot of the things you've heard in the past about wanting guys to be a bit more intense, sometimes I've referred to him. And he's not a partier. He's a guy who's never had a drink in his life, so it's not as if they connect on some of that stuff. But I would not say he's a lone wolf. I would not say he's on the outside necessarily, but he's definitely an interesting personality, and he's one of the many guys that have been coddled to, have been taken care of by management in that clubhouse, and frankly, they have not responded as well as they'd like to. So Ross is going to come in and be about discipline. He's going to be about accountability. And in the meantime, they've made the developmental changes, and the roster changes are the big ones. The roster changes are the most important in terms of right now, because the players are the most important in trying to be a contender immediately again next year.
Yeah, we got a bunch of things in place now. We sit and wait, right? That's only thing we can do. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with Ruben finding daycare tomorrow. I don't know what you're going to do.
We really appreciate you taking time out of your day for us, though.
I'll come down and babysit for you sometime if you want.
You're hired.
No problem.
I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.